Hey there! Thanks for joining us for another installment of Ponderings with AquaNooga, where we answer your pond-related questions. My name's Eric, and today's question is coming in to us from Walt. Came in through our live chat feature on our website, and Walt wants to know what's the best way to keep the pond bottom clean. Well, Walt, there's going to be a lot of factors involved with this, so let's step through some of the basics. We'll go over why we need to keep the bottom clean. We'll go over what's causing sediment in the pond. We'll talk a little bit about prevention, and then we'll talk about tackling it after the fact. So starting with where this sludge is coming from, sludge, debris, sediment, whatever's settling on the bottom of the pond is what we're talking about. So one of the most common sources is going to be fish waste. Then we have debris from our plants. So as our aquatic plants start to decay, those leaves can settle in the bottom of the pond. We also are going to have leaves from outside the pond, tree leaves, things like that are getting into the pond and settling in the bottom. Dead algae can settle to the bottom. Also, we can have rain runoff, washing debris into the bottom of the pond. Now, it is important to address this issue for a variety of reasons. So, you're always going to have a little bit of sediment in the bottom of the pond in almost every situation. So that's somewhat normal. And unless it's getting thick, it's not likely to pose any serious problems. But if it does start getting thick, then that's something we want to tackle. The sediment in the bottom, the sludge, as this decomposes, that can reduce oxygen levels in the pond, which is important. It can feed algae growth, which most of us don't want to see. It can also harbor some pathogens, some parasites, bacteria, things like that can really thrive in that detritus in the bottom of the pond. So now that we've talked a little bit about what the sludge is, why it's important, now we need to discuss a little bit about prevention. So some of the prevention is going to come down to the initial construction of the pond. And for some of us, and I know Walt, that it's a little bit late for that. So stay tuned. A little bit later in the video, we'll talk about the other factors. But the construction of the pond, rain runoff. That is something we really want to avoid, so siting the pond where that's not going to happen, or if it is placed somewhere where it's potentially going to be an issue, we want to do something to address that, and that may be slightly raised sides to the pond, or at least on the high side, maybe a French drain on the high side of the pond to divert runoff around the pond, so that's not getting into the pond itself. Good circulation and good filtration, that it can also be tackled after the fact to some degree, but setting the pond up properly so that we don't have dead zones. We have a lot of aeration to be helping break debris and organic waste down. Bottom drains can be a big help in a lot of ponds. Now, most small ponds, small water gardens, small to medium, are not going to bother with a bottom drain. But larger ponds, koi ponds, that's going to be a big help for you. We want to have a relatively bare bottom pond. So if you're going to cover the bottom of the pond with stone or gravel, small stone, you're going to have a lot of dead zones, and debris is really going to collect between that stone. So a bare bottom is going to help the overall health of the pond much more. Good aeration, good circulation. You obviously, the fish need oxygen in the pond, and so most of the time just a simple waterfall, something like that, is going to be adequate to provide the fish their basic respiration needs, but additional aeration is always important, not just for the fish directly, but it's going to improve your filtration system, improve the ability of the pond's natural ecosystem to function, breaking down organics. So let's say we already do have a pond set up and we need to tackle some of these issues as well. So circulation, aeration, a lot of ponds are built with a skimmer. A skimmer is great because it's pulling a lot of debris off the surface before it ever has a chance to settle to the pond bottom. But especially if we have a deep pond, we're going to have a lot of area that's not well circulated. So that water's not moving very well into the overall system, getting pulled into the skimmer and into the filtration system overall, and allowing a lot of that sediment to just stay at the bottom. That's where we might want to consider either a second pump to circulate that water, or if you don't want to do a second pump, you can do that with an air pump. So an air pump with a diffuser down in that deep zone is going to get that water movement as the air is being injected, so that less settles on the bottom, more of that water and debris is getting pulled into the filtration system. Making sure we have enough filtration. That's going to be very important. So if again, a lot of this waste may be coming from fish. So not too many fish is going to be a very important key to this. That's a hard one for a lot of us, I know. But that fish waste is contributing to that debris on the bottom. And if we don't have enough filtration to account for our fish load, then that has nowhere to go. So we need that filtration to both physically trap some debris, and we need that filtration to be biologically functioning, to be breaking down that debris as well. Now again, if we do have that bottom drain, then a lot of that debris is never even going to have a chance to settle on the bottom. It's going to get swept up into the filtration system, getting consistently trapped and broken down by our filter. Another thing that we're going to want to take care of is beneficial bacteria additives. Keeping the ecosystem, the filtration system, strong by routinely adding beneficial bacteria to boost that process is going to be a big advantage for us as well. Now, let's say we haven't necessarily done the best of that, or we tried, but there's still a lot of debris settled in the bottom of the pond that we need to tackle. So if this is fairly minor, we might be able to address that with just some additional beneficial bacteria, specifically using ones that are focused on sludge digestion. If it starts to get a little bit thicker, then we'll want to look at some of the other means, and that may be physical removal. So if it's larger debris, still fairly solid leaves, then we might be able to just use a pond net, scoop that out, toss it away. If it is more of a muck, a sludge, fine debris, then a pond vacuum can be super useful in this instance. Pond vacuums, great to have when you have a pond. Routine maintenance is made a lot easier that way, but it is a little bit of an investment, and I know not everybody wants to do that. So if you haven't invested in a pond vac, but we still want to try to physically remove some of that sludge, if you are fortunate enough with your landscape layout to have an area of the yard lower in elevation than the pond, then we can use physics and just start a siphon and run that off the way. So fill the hose, get that siphon going, run one end of the hose along the bottom of the pond where that muck and debris is, so that that's getting pulled through and out. If it's a larger deep pond, you can attach that end of the hose to a broomstick, a fish net, something like that, so you can reach those harder places maybe without even getting in the pond. But let's say that our situation has gotten a little bit worse. It's a little bit more severe. We've got sludge in there that's just inches thick. While we typically like to avoid a complete drain of a pond, this may be a situation where the pros are going to outweigh the cons. A complete drain does upset the natural ecosystem, get you back into new pond mode, which takes some time for everything to reestablish. But it may be the right call in this situation, whether you get a pro out there to come drain, clean it up, and refill, or you decide to tackle that yourself, pumping out most of the water and then wet dry vac to get the rest out of there. As you can see, with a well set up, well maintained water feature, we can get back to enjoying the beauty that we've created. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.